Hey guys, I'm in the process of getting this video started, but as I'm getting this video started, I just want y'all to look down into whatever, I guess it's down into my right, or your right, my left. You see Frankie's head right down there. You see Frankie's head, his little noggin right over there.
What up, guys? It is Dalton with DT's Kool Kards, where we are on the path to build $1 million, $1 billion, $1 million business, blah, 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 blah. Got a lot going on today. I got barking dogs. Lily is having a breakdown downstairs, probably over nothing, knowing her. Also, as a side note, I recorded like a 12-minute video yesterday, and my microphone died the entire time. So I tried to stitch it together the best I could. Didn't work out. So what I want to talk to you guys about today is, and I don't know if you guys can hear it now, but Frankie's behind those doors crying. But what I want to talk to you guys about today is how I did last month, not only in sales, but I guess my overall profitability. Now, these numbers are going to sound wild. They might sound a little extreme, and it's going to make sense as I go through it a little bit more because there's just some ins and outs, some what have yous. I cannot think of what movie it's from, that quote, but there's some ins and outs, some what have yous on it that are just not necessarily going to make sense unless I really explain it. So when you hear these numbers, don't jump up to the ceiling or don't, OMG, what is this guy doing? Well, actually, what is the guy doing? That's a pretty accurate. I'm cool with that one. But so let's just get started. So the first thing we're going to talk about is sales. Now, again, sales are sales. It's not profitability. It's not anything other than just sales. In sales, we did at DT's Kool Kards just a little bit over 42,000 in sales. Now, if we break that down, which I did my best. So one thing I've talked about in previous videos is how important bookkeeping is, and my bookkeeping is not always the best. It is difficult, one, when you're doing so many transactions in and out, and there's just so many different ways that a transaction shows up on your credit card statement. To break it down the best that I could, for income, the wholesale stuff or just the things that I sold in bulk, was about 16,500. Not 100% accurate. Like at the very beginning of the month, I made like a $7,500 deposit, and then there was a lot of cash deposits I had this month, and a lot of times cash deposits or either people that are meeting me up for Facebook Marketplace, which I probably hopefully won't be doing that much this month, or sometimes when I do like the big bulk orders, sometimes the customers, they'll pay in cash instead of doing like PayPal or Zelle. And then I had 5780 in TCG Player. Now, again, this is not sales. This is just income because, as you guys know, the way you get paid on these platforms is you're typically about a month behind, maybe like 5 weeks-ish. Then for eBay, I did basically $9,200 in sales and cash on eBay. Now, I would say that's probably pretty accurate in terms of actual sales that I did, well, after fees and whatnot, because eBay pays out a lot faster than TCG Player does. And then the rest of it is MISC. So however you want to quantify that, however you want to look at that, the rest of it is just MISC. When you're doing a lot of cash transactions, a lot of Zells, you just can't necessarily keep track of exactly this person get singles from me. Did he get, or did they get just a few booster boxes? They get a lot of booster boxes, whatever the case is. I spent $15 on marketing. As a side note, is something I need to do a video on. My Facebook Marketplace account got shut down for like 4 days. I have no idea why. It said that I was basically like offering like lottery style listings or whatever, which was not accurate, like even remotely. I would assume that it just got flagged by some AI or just some kind of internal system. And then once someone looked at it, obviously they saw that wasn't right. So, but I did spend $15 like boosting up one of the listings I had or tried to. So next is subscriptions. So for subscriptions, the big things that I spent money on, well, let's get the smaller things first. I spent money on SortSwift. I spent money on TCG Automate, which for TCG Automate, I did not pick up another subscription. So I'm just moving with SortSwift. But then the other ones, the big ones I spent a lot of money on was just the website. I'm going to skip the biggest one, and I'm going to get back to it here in a second. But for shipping, I spent about $440 on shipping. It was mainly on Pirate Ship. I don't know if I actually bought any stamps last month, just because I've had a decent amount of stamps lying around lately, just because mainly I've done the wholesale business side of it. And then supplies. The biggest expense I had is this bad boy right here, the FI 8170 scanner thingamajiggy, and I bought just some other small stuff, some boxes, and some envelopes and stuff like that. So let's get into the biggest expense, which is going to be cards or inventory. Now, this is what I'm about to tell you is not accurate. And it's not accurate because when you buy inventory for your business, whether it's Pokemon cards, Raising Cane's chicken fingers, the way that you look at inventory is you look at it what's called cost of goods sold. I've already started this before in another video. So the way that you figure out your true cost of goods sold, what you spent on inventory for that $42,000 in sales, would be your beginning inventory plus what you spent on inventory throughout the month minus your end of month inventory. So had I done my accounting and bookkeeping correctly, what I would have done is I would have done my starting inventory plus what I purchased minus about $6,900. So right now in my inventory is worth about $6,900, and I want to say that's everything minus I have some Destin Rivals ETBs back there, whatever. I have some of those back there as well. Oh, and then also I took all those tins off because I'm going to be able to sell those. Yada yada yada. I'm going to be able to get rid of those tins in a way that I think is actually I'm pretty excited about. So, did I really spend $39,600 on inventory? Yes, I did. However, the way that you would look at your inventory is think of it as like unrealized gains, right? It's cash that you have sitting on your shelf, right? Which is at Cane's, you never wanted a lot of products sitting on your shelves because that's cash that you have on shelves. However, with the inventory I have here, it's cash sitting on the shelves. What you hope is you hope that that cash you have is depreciating, or excuse me, appreciating, not depreciating. So hopefully that $6,900, let's just say the same inventory tomorrow, let's say it's worth $6,900.50. So it appreciated in value. You don't want it to go 69 or 60. You don't want to go a dollar under whatever that number was. I think it was what 6,899, because then it would be a depreciating cash. You'd think of like inflation, or not inflation, but whatever you call it when the value of the dollar goes down. I can't think off the top of my head. But that's what the inventory total dollar amount was about $39,600. And I broke that down really the best way that I could. So I spent about $18,200 on the wholesale stuff. And I would say the vast majority of that was Chinese. I mean, the vast majority of that was Chinese inventory. I spent $5,000 on a bunch of 151 promos. That was the ones that I had to LP, almost all of them. And then yesterday, day before that, I had an order for all of my sealed Snorlaxes, came up to be like $900 ish. And then I sold all the Cosmo Gengars. The other big one was the $6,000 purchase of the inventory I moved across state lines, which in fact, I guess once I move those tins, I'll have moved all of it. So I'm super happy about that. And I did buy a pretty big collection at $3,800. Overall, not super happy with it. I pulled a Dalton, didn't measure twice and cut once, so not super happy with the with how I did on that one. And then there was a few collections that I bought here and there, but they were very smaller collections, and they were both collections, or most of them were ones that I paid 65% for. So the rest of them I really say were sealed collections that I bought, which obviously learned my lesson on that one. That was not a great experience. So all in all, after $42,000 in sales, which if you extrapolate that over 12 months, $500,000 in sales, I walked away with a net of 1,000 clams, 1,000 USDs. Now, before you unsubscribe, for all you 5 subscribers out there, I think I'm up to 6. I'm up to 6 subscribers now. For all you 6 subscribers out there, don't hit the unsubscribe button. Okay. If anything, tell your friends and family about DT's Kool Kards. Again, I have so much inventory sitting on the shelf for what I bought to prepare for the May Mayhem sale. In fact, I would say the vast majority of it was inventory that I bought literally at the last like week or so, or like the last like 2 weeks of May to prepare for the May Mayhem sale. So, am I happy about being on paper only netting $1,000? Well, no. If my wife were to watch this video, which she won't, she'd be like, "Oh my God, what are you doing up there? Oh my God, we're going to have to sell the house, sell the car, sell the doll, and put the baby to work." It was way better than $1,000. Do I think it was substantially better? Maybe, right? I typically live between 10 to 15% margin, somewhere in there. So I made at the low end 4,200 and at the high end, whatever that number is, right? And am I happy with that? No. And the reason I'm not happy with that is I understand that there's growing pains, but what really pees me is when I make operational mistakes that make me lose money. I'm to an extent, I'm okay with learning something and breaking even, but and even then, that kind of ticks me off because I don't really have time for that, right? I've been doing this full time almost 2 years or at 2 years, whatever it is, and I don't have time to make those operational newbie mistakes. I just don't, right? So overall, I'll have to edit this video pretty good. Now Frank's barking. I'll have to edit this video pretty good. Hopefully it's on the shorter side. But what I want you guys to really understand is when you're thinking about your business, your mind is always going to look at a number and be like, oh my God, either the world is crumbling around you, or you're Leonardo DiCaprio and you're the king of the world, right? But take a minute to really look at your numbers. There's that show that, numbers don't lie on ESPN, or at least it was on there. Numbers don't lie, but they're also subjective, meaning you can build a story around numbers, but you really can make that story sound however you want it to, right? If I wanted to, I could make these numbers sound a lot worse than they really are, and the sky is crumbling around. Or I could make up other numbers and say, or not make up, but I could skew these numbers a little bit more and maybe add another number in there. And, I made $10,000 last year. So you just have to look at it, be strategic, think through your numbers. And I think another thing that I would say really taken away from this exercise is knowing your business, right? Yes, I have a lot of Zelle transactions and a lot of cash transactions, and it's hard for me to keep track of sometimes, but this is my business, and if I'm going to take it seriously, I have to do better, right? Even if it's a 1%, and this is what I talked about in my video yesterday, even if it's a 1% thing that I can get better at to make my business, then that's what I need to focus on. So overall, guys, DT's Kool Kards out. Appreciate it. Check out my TCG Pro Seller site. Y'all have a good one.